You're listening to Mom and Doc Talk, where we talk all things healing pans and pandas with an emphasis on homeopathy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this final episode of Mom and Doc Talk Season 2. We have a super special treat for you. You're not actually going to listen to Jody and I for very long in this episode. So a previous guest of ours, Poppy Bean, which we'll put a link to the episode that she came on with her mom, she had a school project of making a podcast. And she chose to make her podcast all about pans and pandas. It's a real short episode, but we thought it was so amazing. We wanted to share it with you guys, and we thought the best place that we could do that is to wrap up the second season.
Yep. I know oftentimes that you talk about how Pan's kids are going to change the world. And I think it's really cool. I think we're both very blessed to kind of watch Poppy walk this out, because she started out in the group doing a recording with us. And she's just this brave, amazing little girl. No surprise, she's the daughter of Lori Bean. But she just is really, at her young age, showing up in a really big way for the PANS community and doing some advocacy work that is pretty amazing. I am not an emotional person, but I could not help just like getting a lump in my throat as I'm listening to her talk in this podcast episode, because it's just, it's really special that such a young person has it in their heart to just stay with the PANS community, because she could leave also because she's doing very, very well. But she chooses to come back to her friends that are still struggling with PANS, and to us parents, the parents that are still sitting in it struggling. And she's doing what she can to help everyone get through and learn about it and all of those things. She's just a wildly amazing little girl.
Yeah. And anytime she's given an opportunity to write or speak or do a project about something that really matters to her, it ends up being about pans and pandas. And so you're right, Jody. She's among those people who her experience with this is going to help transform and elevate her to a new level. And without further ado, guys, here's Poppy and her podcast.
Welcome to my podcast, Pandas from Struggle to Strength. My name is Poppy, and I'm going to tell you my story. I was just a normal kid, living a normal life, until I wasn't. At 5 years old, I started having symptoms, but I wasn't diagnosed until over a year later. I have PANDAS, which stands for Pediatric Autoimmune Neuropsychiatric Disorders Associated with Streptococcal Infections. Definitely a mouthful. PANDAS is different for every single person diagnosed, and that is why no one kid with PANDAS is the same. For me, when I first started out, I was very young, so my parents thought I was just having tantrums and exhibiting age-appropriate behaviors. But other times, I would be just fine. Eventually, they realized that this misbehaving, different side wasn't really me, and this was not a phase. So they started Googling all sorts of things in search for answers. We consulted with many doctors and therapists and finally found a functional specialist who knew of PANDAS. This process took over a year to get diagnosed, and that time before my diagnosis was really hard on my entire family. When I would have a flare, which is when you have a symptom episode, I was not my true self. My symptoms would act up and I would have a hard time. It feels like you're trapped and you can't get out of the spiral. You do things that you wouldn't normally do. One of my symptoms when I was younger was always being angry and aggressive. Something bad would happen to me and I would blame it on the whole world instead of myself. I can remember being aggressive toward my sister with hitting, kicking, and pinching. This is the symptom that really made me feel like a terrible kid. I wasn't trying to be mean, it just happened. Unfortunately, I always took it out on my younger sister. My symptoms also made me struggle in school. They made me have bad handwriting, struggle in math, and made me not myself. People at my old school thought I was mean and a bad person to hang out with, so I was often alone. It was hard to explain to a bunch of second graders what I was going through. I also had terrible stomach aches at school and went home almost every single day. A teacher's helper even had to sit with me and rub my stomach because of how bad it was. It got to a point where I almost had to switch to homeschool and stay away from people. Eventually, we finally found a specialist an hour away, so my mom took me down there for my first appointment. It was around 3 hours and they did tons of tests, including taking around 10 vials of my blood. All of these tests were not covered by my family's insurance, and they cost my family around $4,000 for one day. When we left, I was given a list of 10 things I had to take multiple times a day. This new doctor told me I needed to be gluten-free, sugar-free, and dairy-free. I was scared, 6 years old, and I had absolutely no idea what was going on. So much of the stuff I would take tasted disgusting, and it was terrible. I was sad and not feeling better at all. I did that for around 8 months, and my family wasn't even sure if it was helping. I was still in full panda mode, and I even had to quit most activities. We were still looking for answers since what we were doing wasn't very clear. And then we ran across this group that specializes in pandas, which is something we had never seen before. And they use something called classical homeopathy. But this is the part of my story where everything changes for the better. In the fall of 2019, I started taking homeopathy. My first dose of my first remedy was a huge relief, and I even got to go on my first Girl Scout campout after only a month into treatment. I met with my original doctor, Dr. Peterson's, for the first time. I met with her every month for the last 5 years on video call to go over my symptoms, and I've been on probably 12 to 15 remedies over the years, with many different potencies of each. I used to take my remedy daily in the beginning, but I started healing and it started to space out. My flares even decreased in severity, frequency, and duration. At about 8 months is when COVID started and school stopped. Along my journey, I had to cancel many things so that way I could heal at home. But as I got better, I felt better. My family could leave the house and go to different events, all together. Over the years, one of my main triggers was mold, stress, and being overstimulated in crowds. I did hit 2 plateaus in my journey over the last 5 years, which is when we found mold in my home and had to remediate. At about the 1.5-year mark, I was even able to join a basketball team, which is something I had never been able to do before. And after the 1-year mark, my handwriting got so much better. I switched schools in 3rd grade so I could have a fresh start, and that is something that I am forever so grateful for. Because now, as the whole new person, people could see me for who I am, and not for who I used to be. By the 3-year mark, my calendar was full and my life was amazing. I was getting so much better, and I was able to do the things I'd always dreamed of doing. Homeopathy is a miracle for me, and I will forever be grateful that I found it, because without it, I would not be able to do the things I do today. Now, my original doctor, Dr. Bahr, is going to say a few words about homeopathy and why not all pandas kids are the same. Dr. Bahr is the founder of Resilience Naturopathic, which is the place I went and where I started healing. Take it away, Dr. Bahr.
We know that PANDAS is triggered by strep throat, but strep isn't actually what causes kids to have an atypical and misdirected immune response. If strep was the whole problem, then everyone who got strep throat would get tics and OCD, but most people get a sore throat and a fever. People who have PANDAS have an underlying susceptibility to an atypical immune response, and it almost always spreads beyond just strep as the trigger. Because the underlying susceptibility is the main cause, we see a lot of variation in symptoms. The nature of the intrusive and repetitive thoughts will vary from person to person, as well as their compulsions. One child might spend hours in the shower because of the fears that they will get sick. Another might refuse to eat anything but a very limited range of foods for the exact same reason. Some are going to have anxiety, some rage, some depression, and some might get a mix of all of these things. Some kids are going to get urinary complaints, others won't. I could go on and on about all the ways things can show up differently. Homeopathy is a centuries-old form of medicine that is helping many kids with PANDAS recover even when other treatments fail. The differences in symptoms help guide a homeopath to find the specific remedy for the individual. Homeopathy is really effective for these kids because it works at the level of susceptibility and stimulates the body to heal so that it can produce an appropriate immune response.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bahr, for participating in this episode of my podcast. But let's go back to the present. Today, I'm 12 years old and I'm doing well. I'm not perfect, but nobody is. But I'm living my life well and participating in many activities. I can be the person my young self always dreamed of. I'm going to continue to strive to help educate people about pandas and homeopathy, and continue to be successful. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of my podcast, Pandas from Struggle to Strength. I hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you found this episode helpful, hopeful, and inspiring. We try to get a new episode out every week. You can make sure you don't miss any by following us on Spotify or subscribing to our channel on YouTube. If you want to connect with us more, join our Facebook group, Homeopathy for Pans and Pandas, where we have exclusive weekly videos and answer your questions about, you guessed it, homeopathy for pans and pandas throughout the week. If you are already a member, give us a shout out and let us know what you thought about this episode. If you aren't on Facebook and would like to reach us, you can email us at podcast@resiliencenaturopathic.com. Until next time, take care and remember, this won't be forever.